Hi, it's Dr. Dina Churchill, innovator in women's health and wellness, and it's September 2nd, 2020. This live video is going to be in particular to parents because we're coming down to the crunch when the kids return to school. And I would ask you to take a look at two pieces of legislation before you make the decision to send your kids back to school. One here in Nova Scotia is called the Mandatory Testing and Disclosures Act. And the second piece is called the Health Protection Act. Now, the Health Protection Act on page 23 was amended and updated June 4th, 2019, to add a clause talking about authority to apprehend, isolate, and quarantine. So before you send your kids back into a government-owned school system, I would ask you to read the Mandatory Testing and Disclosures Act and the Health Protection Act, in particular, page 23. The facts are that 64 people have died with this cold virus, crazy cold virus, 64. Masks reduce your oxygen and don't protect against the virus. And there's nothing in a vaccine that's good for your body. Those are the facts. If you can show me something different, please send it to me. We are being ran by a group of elite powers that our intentions are not pure. Now you'll say, well, not everybody in the government is corrupt. No, they're not. But they're being held by a small group, let's say, of corrupt individuals. And it's not just our governments. So I've emailed many of the MLAs, 51 here in Nova Scotia, 49 in New Brunswick, and 11 of the MPs, and connected and met with some of them, and their hands are tied. They work under their party leaders, just like doctors, physicians work under health department and the College of Physicians and Surgeons. Just like chiropractors, we're given a mandate, we're self-regulating, but we're given a mandate by the health department to put a muzzle on and keep quiet about the dangers of vaccines. That's how my license was suspended. So I'm speaking to you from experience. I'm not bitter, I'm trying to make you better. So I ask you to look at the legislation before you send your kids back to school. Just heard on Seaside FM on the radio, because I don't watch the television, the programming that they're doing to you right now, buying toilet paper and putting on a mask. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy to mask an entire population. And I haven't worn a mask since this whole thing started. And I've been out shopping. There's a video on my YouTube channel of being out in the Halifax shopping center and going into all the different stores. I go for groceries. I go around to museums. And on the weekend, we were up in the valley and going into little bakeries and little craft stores. And so I haven't worn a mask yet. You don't have to wear a mask. You see, it's against your human rights for someone to put you in a mask, right? If you have a medical condition, especially, you could drop dead if you're putting on a mask and reducing your oxygen. And the video I did from the Halifax Shopping Center that you see on the YouTube channel was earlier, but on my way out of the shopping center, and of course it is mandated now in Nova Scotia, right? We're mandated to wear a mask. That means, they're putting you in a muzzle. But on my way out of the Halifax shopping center, I seen this elderly lady, and she was probably in her 80s. And she was holding a walker. She had all her bags on her arm, and she was hobbling along with the mask down over her nose, gasping for air. So I crossed over our, lines of the highway lines, arrows that they put down for you, and asked her if I could help her. And she pulled the mask down over her face a little bit, and I said, if you have one of these mask exemption cards, you won't have to wear a mask. And so I handed her my card, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. And I said, you can be like me, you can walk around, you don't have to wear a mask. She pulled down the mask, and she started to cry. And I started to cry too. And she said, God bless you. She didn't know how she was going to get from where she was out to the, entrance where she could get a cab because she couldn't breathe. Now, this is what the government has done, right? It's mandated a policy. It's not about health. It's about manipulation. It's about control. It's about making you fear this corona scam. And it's a scam. It's not a pandemic. Yes, there's a virus. We have viruses every year. 64 people dying in Nova Scotia is not a pandemic. They have lied to you. They are lying to you about the masks, right? It's to scare you. And now they're going to get your kids back to school. And this is for parents. I have so many parents emailing me, and I'm sorry if I haven't gotten back to you. Truly, I've had to take a break to sort of straighten my own thoughts and collect myself and ground myself so I can come back and give you the information. But they've changed the legislation. So it used to be that a parent had to be contacted first if your child is sick. In this new emergency measures, right, because we're under state of emergency for 64 deaths related to one virus, and 58 of those deaths here in Nova Scotia were at Northwood Manor. So kids will go back to school and they can be taken out of school with the first sign of a sniffle or a fever. Right? So kids, they have fevers, they have colds, they have sniffles. This is part of strengthening your immune system. In fact, viruses have been around, viruses which are dead bits of genetic material. So you can't kill a virus, it's just a dead bit of material that helps strengthen your immune system. Kids play with each other, they share their toys, they share their saliva, usually. They eat the dirt. It's what strengthens their immune system. So the whole idea of putting them in a mask that reduces their oxygen, reduces the oxygen to their brain, and this has been shown scientifically. I did another YouTube video myself where I tested myself using an oximeter, a pulse oximeter, where it looks at oxygen saturation. It most definitely reduces oxygen. So they are putting the kids back into schools, and then the government officials have the ability to take your kid out of school if they're symptomatic meaning sniffles or a fever, and quarantine them and contain them. They're actually looking at containment centers. So they've had these testing. Let's talk about the testing. So the testing, again, is a scam. The developer of the PCR test says you can't test for a virus using that test. So again, it's a scare tactic. It's a way to sell the vaccine. If you want more information on this, you can visit my blog, healthtruth.blog, and it's an article called Mask Truths. Just a few weeks ago, I added a whole section on the PCR tests. So again, don't believe me. This is not my specialty. You're right. I have, I'm just self-researched in the way of legislation and vaccines. But you need to be too, because you're making these decisions for your kids. It's not just about putting them in the mask. When they go to school, they're under government property, right? So I have one parent, a very astute professional, who sent me a letter that he was going to send to his principal, to the school board, and to the teacher, saying, I do not consent to masks or mandatory vaccines. If my child gets sick, please inform me. And I said, this is a great letter. It's a great letter for parents to write. I don't know under this Emergency Measures Act if that is going to hold weight. That would be something you'd have to speak to a lawyer about. I think the emergency measures militant police state takes precedence over individual or parental rights. This is why they have everybody put in a mask. So now, some people would like to wear a mask. They feel safe and protected. And masks do have millimeter pores, so it protects against larger things, like, say, a big bacteria like TB or whooping cough, or a spray if you're spraying your planters. Or the gyprock guys use it, right? Carpenters, when they're putting up gyprock. But when they take off the mask, they have the powder all around inside. So again, for bigger particles, it helps. But for viruses that are little nanoparticles, these masks are foolish. A virus can get in through your eye, it can get in around the masks. There's a lot of studies, and you can look at some websites called Hugs Against Masks. They have a great mask safety sheet that talks about again, what you should know with the mask safety, that you're breathing in chemicals, it's reducing your oxygen, you're breathing in the harmful chemicals and toxins that coming out in an exhalation. So it's, again, like you're smothering yourself, really. But if you're afraid, if you're afraid and you want to wear a mask, that's fine. You can wear a mask, and if you have that belief that you're protected wearing the mask, then you won't worry about me not wearing a mask. But the website is maskexemption.ca, and I had given them a donation and printed mask exemption cards on Vistaprint, and it gives the legislation to each province on the back. So it also says it's a legal offense to ask the nature of my disability. I would say it's ability of needing oxygen under the Nova Scotia Accessibility Act, Human Rights Commission, and it gives the phone number there, 1-877-629-7699. So this is right on the card. So again, you don't need the card. Rocco Galati, who was a constitutional lawyer hired by Vaccine Choice Canada, said you don't need a card. No one can put you in a mask, right? It's against your human rights. But sometimes you'll meet a store clerk or a security guard or somebody who just has been told they have to ask everyone to wear a mask, or they could lose their job. So again, you have to have a little compassion for the people that are in the trenches trying to do their jobs. And sometimes they will need a little education. You'll have to say, first, what I say when I first go in, if I don't say anything, I walk in normally like I own the place, like nothing's ever happened, and I don't make a big deal of it. I don't have a special card that I flash. I don't have a button. I don't have a sign. I don't try to make a fuss. I just go in like I own the place. If somebody stops me and says, "Do you have a mask?" I say, "I don't wear a mask." So I don't say I can't. I just say I don't wear a mask. And then they say, "Well, you can't come in unless you wear a mask." Then, right, second level of rebuttal, I guess, is I pull out my card and I say, do you realize that it is a human rights offense to ask me to wear a mask? And that in Nova Scotia, I believe that comes with a $10,000 fine. And again, you may want to call before you restrict my shopping in your store. You may wish to call your manager, the owner, whoever the owner is, the parent company. Call in whoever you need, because I need to take your name down. So suddenly, there's a whole team of people now that you have to educate. You have maybe the store manager, you have the clerk, there's people around, there's people behind you. Now, this is your stage. Now it's a time to educate, right? So they've restricted your rights. So the only store that prevented me from going in on my shopping spree in this whole thing was the Life Salon Spa at Dartmouth Crossing, Aveda Spa, and I went to pick up shampoo, and they said, you can't come in. And I said, well, it's a legal offense. Can I have your name, please? And she said, we're just following the recommendations of the Nova Scotia Cosmetology Association. Well, can I have their number, please? So I took the number, name. So I took the name of the store. I took the name of the Nova Scotia Cosmetology Association and phoned them and also emailed them. And then they replied back with, that it was a directive under the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Robert Strang. Now, Dr. Robert Strang, he's gotten many emails from me, but he's never replied to any of them. But I'm holding Dr. Robert Strang personally accountable if there's any injuries as a result of masks or mandatory vaccines. Again, they're protected under a crown cabal, this corruption, but you can hold people personally accountable. So I'm making this public. I also published that in my article, which was healthtruth.blog. But this is against your human rights and freedoms. Now, for the people who are upset with the people not wearing masks, you ask yourself, why am I upset? Because I'm being led by a government regulation that's not health and truth and just, and I'm mad because somebody's standing up for themselves. So I would say to you, if you're fearful, you have on your mask, you're going to be protected. If you're looking down upon somebody who's not wearing a mask, ask yourself why and get yourself educated. So mask exemptions, carry one in your purse, carry them in your wallet. I have little business size cards ones, and that reminds me, we're going to be, Informed Consent Nova Scotia is putting off another rally this Sunday. So it's September 6th in Parade Square down right in front of City Hall. Now we've been doing this since July. Our first group we had 10, then we had a few more, we had 20, and there was a no mask Nova Scotia rally, and we had maybe a few more, maybe 30, and last week we had about 100, the week before we had about 200 people. This is something you can do. This is a way for you to stand your ground. 200 people standing, kissing, hugging each other, had a big picture, everybody together, no one wearing masks. So what is the purpose in those protest rallies? It's to have fun. It's to show your kids they don't need to fear the environment, because this is what we're teaching our kids when they go back to school and they have these masks on and they have to be 6 feet from their friends. We're teaching them to fear the environment. Well, we've been living on this earth for thousands, millions of years with viruses and bacteria. It's helped us grow. It strengthens your immune system. It also helps in the evolution of our species. So the whole idea of putting on a mask to keep away a little nanoparticle virus is ludicrous. It's actually ridiculous when you think about it. So our job for those who are educated is to educate others. And that might be a mask exemption. I always carry a few. So if you meet someone, like the people I seen at Sobeys the other day, you can, give them some, right? If they're angry that you're not wearing a mask, share your secret. Right? Share your secret with them. And the more that you don't wear a mask, the more that you liberate others to know the truth and liberate others to do the same. So that's my little bit about masks. So I heard on Seaside FM. I don't watch the news. I haven't owned a TV in 8 years, but I do like music. So I turned on Seaside FM on my way back, and I hear Alberta schools cases of COVID-19. See what the scam is? They're going to wait until the kids get back to school. And then they'll say there's outbreaks in the schools. Then what are they going to do? Quarantine, lockdown, remove your kids, mandatory vaccines, or they can't go back to school. There's a plan in place. And we know this is a plandemic. If you watch Dr. Judy Merkowitz's first movie, Plandemic, she now has another brilliant one out there, and it's called Indoctrination. Dr. Nation, and I'll post those links later, but I would encourage you, especially if you're a parent about to send your kids back to school, please just watch that documentary. I don't know, some people will probably think I'm out to lunch, right? Just ask yourself, okay, if you think I'm a crazy anti-vaxxer, ask yourself, what does she get from giving this information? Well, I make bad friends. I have lost my job. I've lost my livelihood. I had to sell my house. What do I get for sharing these truths? What do I get? I can sleep with my own soul. So you see, what happens is there's this corrupt group of individuals at the top, the pharmaceutical companies that are wanting to sell this vaccine. Ironically enough, they're also the ones that created the vaccine, created the virus. So Bill Gates, the Queen, the UN, the World Health Organization are all named on the patent of the virus. You see, that virus, that coronavirus, was made in a lab. And just like computer guys, like Bill Gates, give you the virus, so then they can sell you the antivirus. And this is what they've done. They've given you the coronavirus. Now they're going to try to sell you the vaccine. On Seaside FM, not only did they report that there were cases of COVID-19 in these schools, but that Canada has signed, this is what they said, 4 American companies for the vaccine. So we will be well represented. We want all Canadians. This is what they're promoting on the news. We want all Canadians to have the first access to this vaccine. Well, the problem with that is Halifax is a test city, right? Halifax is where they're going to inject us first. So let's go back to vaccines, okay? If you don't know what's in that needle, research it. Vaccine Choice Canada. Mothers will take a box of cereal and they will look at the ingredients before they feed their kids, right? Make sure there's no sugar or artificial dyes and flavors, but then they willingly roll up their sleeve and inject their kids with harmful chemicals. There is nothing in a vaccine. Why do I know that? Because I researched it. I researched it before I injected my kids. So when this is 22 years ago, right? I was kind of silent about vaccines then. Made my own decisions, but we had informed choice. I only started speaking out about it when things became mandatory, when they start infringing on our human rights. Because I figured informed parents want to know. Some people won't want to know. They'll go and have their kids vaccinated. There'll be injuries, and I can't really do anything about that. But when the government starts mandating me to wear a mask, or mandating my family, or mandating a smart meter on my house, that's when I get loud. And you need to too, right? You need to educate yourself first on what's in a vaccine. So there is what? Polysorbate 80, there's glyphosate. What's glyphosate? It's a antibiotic, really. It was first patented as an antibiotic, but it's sold as a herbicide in Roundup that's now causing cancers. We know that because Monsanto's just been sued $2 billion, or not just, a few years ago, and the couple that had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma won. So we know this glyphosate in the vaccine is cancer causing. That's just one ingredient. Then we have aluminum. Now, parents, just look at this logically, okay? We have been coached not to use aluminum in our pots and pans because it wouldn't be good to ingest. How good do you think it is to inject it into your body, right? Not in a little tiny baby, no. And then we have mercury. So most people are understanding the effects of mercury, right? How it, again, affects our brain. You know, Mad Hatter's disease is mercury poisoning, right? You can Google it. So how, if you drop the flu shot on the floor, and the vial breaks, you have to call the biochemical hazmat team to come clean it up because it has more mercury in the flu shot than what the Environmental Protection Agency allows. Imagine that. And you're injecting it into your babies. And it will be in this new COVID vaccine. So we have aluminum and heavy metals and polysorbate and glyphosate. And then you have retroviruses. Now, if you don't believe me, go read about it. A book called The Plague by Dr. Judy Merkovitz will talk about that. And these are little viruses, bits of genetic material that get injected into you. Why? Because they have to grow the vaccine on something, right? It's called like a substrate or a culture. And they grow it on like monkey and mouse tissue. So that tissue ends up in your body. Now, our bodies don't like monkey and mouse tissue, right? They don't like being injected. So it creates an inflammatory reaction. It actually aggravates our immune system. This is how they theorize it has an effect, but it overstimulates our immune system. So we have inflammation, and that creates, diseases, inflammatory diseases. Children's Health Defense, you can look at Children's Health Defense, and there's a chart, in fact, I'm going to post that too, that looks at all the chronic diseases they tested. So things like autism and asthma and eczema and attention deficit and irritable bowel syndrome and all these food allergies. Any inflammatory condition, juvenile arthritis, was more in the vaccinated population. So we already know vaccines are bad, okay? If you don't, then you get on the bus and learn about it. But this COVID vaccine that you're developing, why is this worse? It has all the other stuff. Yes, you may ask a question, John, and I hope I can answer it. I'll look occasionally to see, for those who might be watching later on YouTube or on a Facebook Live, so it can be interactive. I love that. I love knowing what you're thinking. I love you challenging me, because it's only from seeing what the challenge is do I know how to communicate with you, right? We have to see where the communication block is, and then I can help. So yes, John, please, you can ask a question. There's a bit of a lag, I think, in between. What was I talking about? The vaccine. So they had COVID-19. The fact that they can't really identify it from the PCR test, this is the science, right? Then it's really tricky to develop a vaccine about that, right? I mean, they develop a flu vaccine that they promote every year, and many, Dolores Calhill and others, immunologists, say if you had the flu shot, you're more likely to die with the COVID vaccine, because the flu shot contains a cold sequence of RNA corona sequence. So if you had a cold, you're more likely to die, right? So it's not really about health. And we still have the flu. Every year we get the flu. It's a marketing thing, right? The flu shot is a marketing thing because there's nothing in the flu shot that helps you. There's nothing in there. In fact, if you have 5 consecutive flu shots in a row, you're more likely to 10 times more likely to have Alzheimer's, right? Metallic deposits in your brain that affect how the neurons, connect with one another. So the flu shot is no good. But in this COVID vaccine, the thing that is different is something called DARPA, D-A-R-P-A. So I think it's DARPA. Defense Advanced Research Project. And if you look up under DARPA hydrogel, H-Y-D-R-O-G-E-L, you will see that this added ingredient affects our DNA. It actually binds to your DNA. So it's a nanoparticle that you can now be manipulated and controlled and monitored from a remote artificial intelligence, a computer. So again, a FEMA researcher named Celeste Solomon, S-O-L-U-M-N, I'll post her video too, says that this will actually change us from being pure human to being kind of hybrid human, because they're entering DNA and these nanoparticles that are going to change our DNA, right? Isn't that unbelievable? That we could be monitored and controlled by a computer, that we're going to be hybrid humans with this COVID. So your physician may not even know what the ingredients is, right? They might not even know. My physician didn't know. When I quizzed her about what was being injected into my kids 22 years ago, she said, I don't want to know. Because if I admit what's in this vaccine is hurting kids, then I really can't live with myself. I said, thank you. Keep playing your charade. I'm just taking all my information on my kids and I'm going home, right? Because medical doctors, all the regulated healthcare practitioners, medical doctors, nurses, chiropractors, dentists, they can't tell you that it's harmful or they lose their job. That's what happened to me. There was a pediatrician, down in Halifax that started splitting up the vaccines because he too was seeing vaccine injuries in his practice. And he lost his license. So again, it's not that all the doctors are corrupt. It's not that all the MLAs are corrupt. It's not that all the MPs are corrupt. It's a few that control the top, like the World Health Organization. So when I emailed an MLA about the dangers of vaccines and the whole COVID scam, she said, we follow, it was an automatic kind of response, but we follow the World Health Organization. Well, the World Health Organization had a 1973 mandate to kill using vaccines. So you see, if you're following someone who's corrupt, your actions are going to be corrupt. So I would also ask doctors, teachers, parents, principals, nurses, chiropractors, not to play into the charade. Don't wear the mask, right? I mean, you're playing into the charade instead of standing up, for yourself and for our population and for our humanity. So if you're a regulated healthcare practitioner, you need to be informing your patients of the dangers of wearing a mask, reducing oxygen, increasing transmission of viruses. You should be saying if you get dizzy, if you feel faint, not let this poor woman go through the shopping center almost ready to pass out. No one told her that the mask has more health detriment than it does benefit. Right? For her, unless she was spraying her paint can or something, that she was going to inhale all these, paint particles. The mask is not a health practice. The mask is about controlling you and about manipulating you. I've said this from the very beginning, and I haven't changed my mind. So parents, when you say, what do I think? I haven't changed my mind in this whole thing. Don't mask your kids. Don't inject them with chemicals. And now don't send them to school. Because if you send them to school, according to our regulations, and the 2 pieces that I want you to read again are the Mandatory Testing and Disclosure Act and the Health Protection Act, page 23. Which says it's given the government, which is the school system, the crown, the corrupt cabal crown, the authority to apprehend, to isolate, and quarantine your kids. So parents say, what can I do? I'm a single mom, I have to work, figure it out. Just don't send them back. So when you have kids, you have to look at before they go to school, right? You have to kind of work out childcare situations. Look at community-based schools. If you scroll down my page, you see I did a page and I gave you resources for community schools, groups of parents that are getting together to try to educate their kids. Because right now, my feeling is that if you send them away, it's, there might be a day that they don't return to your home. The CDC, Center of Disease Control and Prevention, also Rocco Galati tweeted this, is looking at emergency lockdown measures at your school that would require your kids to sleep over at the school. This is a directive, just came out 2 weeks ago from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. Why are they wanting to lock down our kids? Excuse me, like for a cold? Hello, 64 people died, 58 of those were at a long-term care facility. And again, because of the research that says if you had a flu shot, you're more likely to die with the vaccine, my question to the health minister, that was Honorable Randy Dolores, and our chief medical officer, Robert Strang, was did these people at Northwood have the flu shot? If they did, was it from the same batch? And were they all from the corner of the building right next to the new cell tower that went up, the 5G radiation? So in itself, any of these things are toxic. Dr. Zach Bush, another triple board certified doctor that I just love his information, his research, his products. So he has a product used to be called Restore. He has another one now called Ion, and it helps, it's soil bacteria that he's putting back into our bodies that helps heal gut lining. Because all these food sensitivities and gluten intolerance is all because we've killed our guts with the genetically modified foods and the glyphosate from the injections. So his products kind of put that back in. So I'd encourage you to look after Dr. Zach Bush. But he says what a virus does is this virus in particular is unmasks toxicity. Unmasked toxicity in our body. So if you've had the flu shot, if you're immunosuppressed, if you're not eating well, if you haven't had sunshine, if your vitamin D is low, if you're next to a cell phone tower, the 5G technology, that's a microwave. I mean, the military uses as a military systems wave. If you have all these things bombarding you at once, your system can't handle it. Otherwise, a simple cold virus, you can handle it. But again, what the research says is if you have radiation, right? Radiation poisoning, which is what these cell towers are, it suppresses your immune system, and then you're more likely to have coronaviruses, cancers, other immune diseases. So we have to kind of look at that. Now, let me just see if there's any questions. So should we keep our immune system, so what should we do to keep our immune system strong? Great question, I love that. So I have another YouTube video saying survive and thrive through any virus. So you can go on and look at that because I give all sorts of products and different things. But the big ones are really just to keep your environment as clean and clear as you can. Pretend like you're like 100 years ago and you're a caveman, right? Try to keep smart meters off your house. So they will say this is mandatory. That's bullshit. Just opt out. It's not mandatory. You signed a contract with the company, whether it's the water company or the power company. Again, they're controlled by this corrupt cabal too. They're all part of the plan. So just opt out of the smart meter. Then you can eat foods that are organic, or even better, grow your own foods. Get a little greenhouse, grow your own foods out in your backyard. Friend in Newfoundland, Newfoundland is like almost like the North Pole, but she grows food year-round because she has a thermal base and she grows her own food. So then you can control what goes on it. Because in Canada, they spray our foods with this glyphosate, this antibiotic compound. They called it a herbicide. Yeah, it kills the herbs, but it kills everything else too. All the bacteria in the soil, all the bacteria in our guts, all the bacteria and all the bacteria and life in our oceans. It's a horrible thing. And Nova Scotia Power were spraying their power lines with it. They were spraying the trees and the farms in the valley. It's poison. Glyphosate is poison. So try to eat organic foods. Avoid the processed foods because they too come with chemicals. And it's the chemical toxicity in our body, right? It's cumulative. That's why some people have autism and some people don't, or they'll have different spectrum, right? Because it's about how much we accumulate. So if our parents had vaccines and have heavy metals and have metal fillings in their teeth, then when the mom has a baby, babies are born now with 258, I think was what the Environmental Protection Agency said, 258 toxins already in their umbilical cord. So our babies today are already born toxic from what we've done. to our environment and to ourselves. So we have to protect them. So organic foods, fresh air, being out in nature, get away from the city. I was up in the valley on the weekend. Thank you, Deanna, for saving me and taking me away, because my head just buzzes in the city with all this radiation. Get away, get to a beach, drive away from the cell towers if you can, protect your homes. So there's a Q-ray I just ordered from the group with Truth About Cancer. I wear this Q-ray Q3 quantum bracelet, that helps. It creates a torus field and a holographic image that helps, heal my body. I eat supplements. I filter my water, because the water, again, glyphosate is a water-soluble poison. It gets into our groundwater. Try to filter your water. There's all sorts of different products, the ways to detox your body. So there's carbon 60 that David Wolf talks about. There's diachromaceous earth. There's zeolite, and I've been taking a product called TRS. So if you want any information on sort of different products, go to that or email me through the blog, healthtruth.blog, because I don't always get on Facebook. Sometimes I'm locked out. So if you want to reach me, go through the blog, healthtruth.blog, and the Masked Truth articles is the one. So immune system, what else? And very important to meditate, because this idea, what we're going through right now, is crazy. It's so stressful for our bodies. And the stress and the fear is part of the plan, right? To keep you in a mask, to keep you locked down, to keep you away from your church, away from your families, away from your social events, is part of this, it's part of the plan. The Black Lives Matter movement. Whoop! Last time I mentioned that, we got attacked. But the Black Lives Matter movement is actually funded by the Democratic Party. So if you go on the Black Lives Matter website and you can click through all the stuff, you'll see it's the funds for Black Lives Matter is Democratic Party. So George Soros actually created this, right? To create fear and tension against, so we can fight each other. Because they themselves can't override us. They can't run us. They're not going to win unless they convince us, right, to create anger and animosity, unless we kill ourselves. And we're way right on track with the masks and the whole thing. So you really need to take a little bit of responsibility for this. Can't believe all the process of all the bullshit. Oh my God, yes. I don't know if you're talking about what I'm saying or what they're saying, but I would just say too, if you think what I'm saying is bullshit, you can tune me out. Unfriend me. This is what I would like. If you don't value the information I'm giving, I would be grateful for you to unfriend me from the bottom of my heart. Because right now there's a separation happening. And you're either speaking up for truth or you're part of the problem. You're part of the silent consent group. And I don't want that. So I don't want you to say, Dina, don't tag me. What do you think about this? But don't put me. You know what? We have a choice now. And the people that are on my page, the people that are watching here now, Juliana, Renee, Kathy, the people that are watching are the leaders. And I want leaders around me. I want people who care about their kids and are willing to fight tooth and nail. So if you're hiding, scared, you're not going to be on my friend group, okay? You're not. Because right now, I'm trying to network. I'm trying to network here locally. I'm trying to network with other countries, with other people. I'm sorry if you want to be my friend and you have certain conditions. No, you're either with me now or you're not. So if you're watching this video and you don't find value in knowing what's in a vaccine, please delete me, because and I'm sorry about this, but there's about 2,000 people in requesting friendship, and I can't take you on. And I haven't gotten back to you. I know I have emails that I haven't gotten back to, but there's only so many hours in the day. And I appreciate, there's a lot of good people that are there waiting in the sidelines, ready to stand up and fight for their kids and fight for humanity and take off the friggin' mask and not send their kids back to school. And those are the people that inspire me. And those are the people I really want around me. We need this. We need to create our strength in each other and know that we have each other's back. And again, if you're wanting to be silent, that's fine. I understand. I was silent too at one point. If you want to be silent, that's good. But if you could delete yourself, unfriend me, you can still follow. So I had this conversation with Debbie on the weekend. She said, I thought you were being a bit rough in that when you ask people to leave your page. But you can still follow me because most of these things are going to be on public, so you can still hear the information. But if you're not willing to take a stand, please unfriend me because there's other people that are willing to. And this is where we are right now. We can no longer be silent. We have to stand up for our kids, for our communities, because we're not being protected by the government. You see, if you read that Health Protection Act, right? It says the Health Protection Act. It's page 23 that says, no, we're giving our government authority to apprehend, isolate, and quarantine our kids. So the government is not protecting you. That was a wake-up call for me to think, well, the government's not protecting me, but they're not. And we know that the governments are being bought out. I said this in another video, right? That we have the immune. The group people like the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, J.P. Morgan, they formed the Federal Reserve. And thank God Donald Trump has defunded, or actually became chairman, I think, of the Federal Reserve and defunded the World Health Organization. So God bless you, Donald Trump. I wish Justin Trudeau would do the same. But there was this group of corrupt individuals, and they not only monopolized the money and the currency and the railway and the steel and the wars, directing the wars, and put in this false tax system that we have. But they also monopolized medicine. You can look at that, the Flexner Report, 1910, and they took over medicine. They made, instead of a healing modality, medicine became drug pushers. Pharmaceuticals was this mainstay of medicine. That's not traditional medicine. Ignoring what's in the environment, what you eat and what you breathe, and they sold out to kind of what you inject or what you ingest without giving any other advice. That's not true medicine. That's pharmaceutical cabal. They took over that. So they also bought out our governments, you see, and our media. So that's why the media is every hour telling you how many corona cases, not how many corona deaths, right? But they're telling 1,000 cases. Oh, new outbreak. It's somebody that has a cold, okay? It's probably a little worse than a cold and less than a flu. But the media is being bought out by this agenda to inject you by the pharmaceutical companies. And again, the governments have been bought out. So the government, let's look back. The 1986, bill that was passed, Ronald Reagan and the Congress put it through. The bill that said, absolved vaccine companies of any liability. So your child can be damaged and they can still keep the vaccine on the market. If you have a drug, unlike, right, drugs, they don't even have this blanket liability. If they have a drug, I don't know what it was, Prevacid, or I don't know, Prozac, or I don't know, some drug that causes other conditions, causes heart attacks, they take the drug off the market if they've had a few complaints. They can't do that with vaccines. Vaccines are the only thing that Robert F. Kennedy said, only business that he knows of that have blanket liability. You can kill a whole section of the population and it still stays on the shelves. Why? Because the CDC, who mandates or who controls our health policies, is a vaccine company. They buy $4 billion worth of vaccines a year. So they instituted this bill, right, in 1986. Then we come along a little further in 1996. Then we have the Telecom Act. You can look this up. This is true, where they absolve cellular companies of any liability for the damage. So we know, the science shows, when we hold a cell phone to our ear, we have more tumors on this side of our body. Kids are getting more cancers, and at a younger age, in their thyroid in particular, and in their brain, again, because of the cell phone. So this is with the old technology. This is before we've even upgraded to 5G. But the Telecom Act was put in by the government, not to protect you, but to protect these big cellular companies. Right? Because again, they're part of that, they're controlled by that corrupt cabal. And then 2013, Obama passed the Monsanto Act. Monsanto has his own act in government. Now they're a group of companies, but it absolves liability away from the company. But again, there's other ways. So, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. got in there, and there was, like I said, a $2 billion there's a $2 billion suit for the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for this couple in the States. So it's starting to break through as more people become aware. But you need to share it. You need to share this information because they're not going to hear. On CBC, CTV, Seaside FM, all the major news channels, they're still talking about COVID like it was a pandemic. 64 people, it's a cold. It's absolutely absolutely a cold virus. You can research it. Coronavirus is a cold virus. They did splice it up, in the lab, and put a few more things on it to make it kind of, a little more virulent probably for us. But it's a cold, and you can't vaccinate against a cold. So that too is a scam that they're trying to sell you, and that they're going to hold your kids probably in the school system under quarantine. Somebody gets a sniffle and a cold, and they'll call it corona because they can't test. They can't identify corona from that PCR test. An asymptomatic carrier is a healthy person. If you're asymptomatic, you're healthy, right? I have viruses in my body. I am sure I have coronavirus in my body. I'm sure I have lots of viruses in my body, but if I can keep my immune system healthy, my immune system keeps it in check. So again, eating well, sleeping well. At night, I find it hard to settle down. Can you tell? So CBD oil, essential oils. Essential oils are really healing. This is what I put in my witch hazel instead of using the hand sanitizer, right? Because it's alcohol. It's like an antibiotic. It kills all the bacteria. But we're not plastic Barbies that you can wipe down. The bacteria in us and on us serve a purpose to help our immune system. So another part, I use witch hazel and I put essential oils. You look up frankincense and how frankincense is a natural kind of antibiotic. But the beauty of essential oils is that it's specific, non-specific. So it will kill a bad bacteria, but it won't hurt your natural flora, your natural bacteria. So it can elevate or decrease. I always give this example because I love it. I think we all should have cinnamon in the morning, but cinnamon can, elevate your blood sugar if it's low or decrease it if it's high. Frankincense oil can kill harmful bacteria. It can take away molds and like different abnormal skin cells and skin cancers and things. So the essential oils are powerful to use on your body, to use as antibacterial things, and to also help calm you. So at night I have like my little combination from sage, which is called Sleep Well, and I use that and it helps me sleep. I use my seaweed oil, so getting good sleep, because when you're sleeping, you're restoring. But you need to have your sleep environment kind of like a protective cocoon. So unplug everything. Don't have any electromagnetic energy if you can. If you can get this key ray that creates a torus field in your room, and I'll post a link about that. Again, The Truth About Cancer. Ty Bollinger had done a feature on that about protecting yourself against EMF radiation, and there's many other ways and products, and feel free to include it here. Let's see, because the RNA virus will mutate. It's unbelievable. Yes, the viruses mutate. They're just little bits of genetic material. Thank you, Renee, for that. But there's all sorts of different products that you can get to help protect yourself. But basically, unplugging your router at night, real simple thing everybody can do. There's also a Faraday box, which is like a metallic box you can get to go over your router. You can get the same for your smart meter. If you have a smart meter on your house, call the company, get them to change it back to the analog meter, which is just a meter where the meter man has to come out and read it, instead of kind of sending it via Wi-Fi to the company. Because that Wi-Fi is creating like a microwave grid in your house. So when you're in your house, you're actually trapped in a microwave technology. I won't get too much onto the 5G because I want to keep it kind of quick. But the 5G technology is harmful. The military studies, they've been using this as a military wave for years. So the military has lots of safety studies on this. I've called Rogers and TELUS and asked them for safety studies. They don't have any. They're rolling out this technology now. Right now in Canada, Bill Gates has sent, satellites up into the air so we can have like this grid over our whole Earth, and no one has questioned it. So while we were away, they've been putting up these 5G towers. You can see cellular towers. I seen 10 between here and Wolfville, or where were we? Annapolis Valley, 10 cell towers. So they've been installing these while we've been in lockdown, so we couldn't see it, right? It's part of the plan. Because if you irradiate a body, right, it suppresses your immune system. So if at night you can create that environment for yourself where your body can heal, at least you can go out the next day and withstand it. So different devices that I use, I've just suggested. So as somebody asked about immune systems, so what goes into your mouth, try to keep it pure and clean, like the organic foods, non-processed. Then, and again, like even your meats, make sure it's not filled with antibiotics and things like that for those who love to eat meat. And your vegetables, again, water-soluble poison especially goes up into vegetables, so you need to be eating organic there. Filtering your water, filtering your air if you can. I have an Air Doc filter that I found on Health Nut News with Aaron, and I use that machine to help kind of pull out toxins out of the air. And what you're putting on your skin. You know, coconut oil is as I use for a makeup remover, I use as a moisturizer, I use to shave my legs, it's amazing. You know, you don't need all the toxic stuff that you can put on your skin. I have a natural zinc sunscreen that I use if I'm out for too long, otherwise I'll just sort of cover up, but natural materials. So what goes in you and on you should be pure. It should be from the earth, not from a chemical bottle. And reducing the chemicals is the way that you keep your immune system healthy. Detoxing, as I mentioned, the chemicals that are in there. So healthtruth.blog, Math Truth has all the information on the PCR test, has information on masking. And then there's the next article was called the corona wave or the second wave, and you can go there and look. I've got resources there that you can check into too. I don't know if there's any more questions. Can you give us a list of where you purchased your tools? Okay, thanks, Renee. I will post some of the things that I've mentioned on this list, because truly they come from anywhere and everywhere. I love to kind of like support and buy and surround myself with people that are healthy and have kind of a healthy vision. So there's not really one company, I don't think, where you can get all this, but just pulling out different information. But the Air Doctor is the health filter I use. Q3 is quantum science. I also have a quantum science tourmaline necklace that I use if I'm going out and around. What else did I mention? I'll think about it and I'll post some links. But and your immune system. So I said keeping your mind healthy, meditation, keeping your thoughts to what you want, right, instead of what you don't want. So you want to keep your kids healthy. You're going to stress yourself and your kids out more if you send them back to school and say, honey, you can't wear a mask, and if anybody comes to you and wants to take you away. I mean, I can't imagine even telling that to my kids, right? So parents say, well, I'm coaching my kids in case anyone tries to take them. You're leaving that responsibility to your kids, when the teacher, and again, the teachers and principals, they just lose their job if they're not following what happens in school, in the school department, right? Or what they call education department. I mean, their orders come from the education department, just like my orders to keep quiet about the vaccine dangers came from the health department, or, whatever your department, MLAs come from the political party. So there's a lot of good people in that system, but they're just too afraid to speak. So you have to protect your own kids. So again, I'll go back to the 2 pieces of legislation you must read before you send your kids back to school, if you send them back at all. If it was me, I wouldn't send my kids back. Thank God my youngest son just graduated, but I would not send them back. And there's a great online courses. I mean, they were studying for online, right? They were doing online the last bit. They didn't go to school, and you can find online programs, homeschool programs, group parents. You can do it yourself. You can do it yourself. You can network with other parents who have the same vision, and you can make yourselves and your kids better with this opportunity instead of stressing them out and stressing yourself out by putting them back in that default program that they've set up for you, the trap. So the last thing I want to mention, actually, no, I've got a few more things. So there's millions out in the Freedom event last week. And you scroll down my page, you'll see Berlin, Germany, France, Korea, Canada. I mean, people are standing up in the millions now. So the good news is this dark agenda of the corrupt cabal is being exposed, and it's only going to continue. We're gaining momentum in the truth movement, and there's more and more coming up. More people are getting the courage to kind of stand up for what's true and what's just. So that's going to continue. So we're doing it, right? And coming to Parade Square down in Halifax, like I said, we've been there since July, and it's just growing every week. We know we're starting to be a threat to the let's say, the forces that aren't in agreement with our truth sharing, because last week the town council clock kept ringing every 10 minutes. I mean, usually it's every hour or maybe even on the half hour, but every 10 minutes it was ringing. And then the Five Fishermen restaurant, which was right there on the corner, had their music blasting so loud that we could hardly speak. We had a PA system and we could hardly be heard because of the, music from the Five Fishermen. So we know we're making a difference because these big businesses that are ran by billionaires in the city and our city council, are trying to drown us out. So we need more people. We need more voices to stand with us every week down at City Hall. So City Hall, bring your smile, bring your signs, bring your kids. We have a good time. We have music. Ricky was there last week. We did a little meditation with him. He had his guitar. It's a good time. It's not an angry protest. It's a celebration of our freedom and a celebration of our families. And I'd invite you to come. So it would be this Saturday. And then good news too, JFK, has sued Facebook. I'm still on, but for their censorship, because you can't censor things that are truth, right? I mean, the truth is the truth. It's kind of a fake checker they put on. It's a fake checker, some of the information is not true. Well, they can't really provide you with information that gives you the validity of their statements. Anyway, it's a blessing, really, to see Robert F. Kennedy doing this. And I really feel like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is carrying on his uncle's mission, right? Because John F. Kennedy, back in 1962, stood up and said, there's a plot to enslave every man, woman, and child in the world, in this country. And before I leave this high and noble office, I tend to expose it. That was 2 weeks before he was assassinated. So you see, this is not a new plan. To enslave you and your kids and inject you. This has been going on for a long, long time. But thank God there's people with guts and gumption and courage like Robert F. Kennedy that will keep that mission alive of exposing the corruption. But we need you to help us. We need everybody to stand together. It's that unity that's going to shift the paradigm. And the I Can't Decide with Del Bigtree and the Highwire got booted off of Facebook. But in 2 weeks, they raised $500,000. So this tells me that parents are waking up. Parents want to make a difference for their kids. We're creating a whole new media, a truth media. So the medias that are not reporting truth, CBC, CTV, Global, Seaside FM, whatever else, are reporting just as puppets. COVID, it's going to be bad. We're excited about the vaccine. We're going to be washing those out because the masses, the public, the educated public will see what they're promoting is bullshit to sell the vaccine. And now we're starting to move. That's why 1 billion people seen the movie Plandemic. 1 billion people. And this indoctrination movie, again, you can find it on plandemic.com, or you can find it on London Real with Brian Rose. Brian Rose has created this whole platform because his old platform basically fired him and told him he couldn't have these truth people like David Icke and Judy Merkovits and Del Bigtree and all those people interviewed. So he said, well, frick you, I'm going to create my own channel. So he has an independent channel that already's had 1 billion views, right? So it's I Can Decide now is creating their own media channel. Then we have Brian Rose at London Real and Rebel News. So Rebel News put together this. So the maskexemption.ca is where I got that. That's from Rebel News, and they took their time and found the research, found the legislation for each province in Canada. You can go print off your mask exemption. So please, give them a little donation. We need to be donating to these causes like JFK and the Children's Health Defense. Hopefully, we've got some feelers out for the Children's Health Defense, perhaps to come to Canada. I would love that. So if anyone has any other connections, I would love that. And then the I Can't Decide with Del Bigtree, the Highwire support there, and then especially for Canadians, Vaccine Choice Canada. So they have hired a lawyer, Rocco Galante, who's taken the Canadian government to court for unconstitutional measures regarding the COVID restrictions. So we need to support Vaccine Choice Canada and this regulation. And then there's other groups like Moms Against Social Distancing. I mean, we know smiling and being with people is part of stimulating our vagus nerve, which is part of our immune system. So smiling and not wearing a mask, you're actually helping those who are too afraid and too ignorant not to. Hugs Over Mask is another great group that I'd recommend. And millions from around the world, I mentioned that. The MPs. I don't know if there's any questions. I don't know if I've said everything that I wanted to say, but I'm going to be signing out soon. But just to say that the movement has changed. Oh, one important thing I forgot. This was what I wanted to end with. That Tuesday last week, there was a press release from out of BC where they passed as citizens, okay, the citizens of this assembly in BC produced a stand down order. So it was a public safety bylaw that outlawed and nullified the restriction measures around COVID, so masks, lockdowns, and also nullified and outlawed the mandatory vaccines. So this is a whole new area of research that I've just started to investigate, and it's called international common law. But right now, our law, which is the civil law, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm just learning about this myself, so anyone feel free to jump in and add if I'm saying something incorrect or you want to correct me or add information. Again, we're a team. But the civil law is kind of equal with papal law, gives the Pope protection against sex offending all those little kids and sex trafficking priests and things. This is under the crown. So this is what the Queen represents, right? All that corruption. The Queen was on the patent of the coronavirus. The Queen is the one that started the 5G technology. The Queen is corrupt. She's like a reptile. But so the governments are sitting at this level and under the Crown Corporation and all the Commonwealth countries like Australia and Canada. And you can look under commonlaw.ca or commonlaw.com maybe. But type in the common law website and I'll add that here and you can read about it yourself. The first expression of common law was the Magna Carta in 1200s, 1213. So it really allows us all to be equal and just, and we all have a responsibility to each other and to our environment. In the civil law, so foundationally they're different. In the civil law, we're looked at as chattel. So Canada is actually a corporation, right? Canada Corporation, where the international law is higher. It's a higher court, a higher authority, to God and man, and not to the Queen, that can override these current measures that are in place. But in order to do that, in order to produce a public safety bylaw, let's say a directive, a structure, you have to have an assembly in your area. So if you're interested, I would ask you to go on the website, the Republic of Canada, Kanata, I'll put that in the links, website, and you can find a representative in your area that's trying to create an assembly. Because we can get angry and mad and hold our kids home and try to protect, but then we need a structure. We need a structure that is going to change the current paradigm and a way to override the corruption that's currently in that Crown Corporation of Canada or for many other countries. So this international common law, I think it's a way to do that. So I've been researching it. I'd encourage you to research it too. And just know that the change is happening, right? We have lawyers that are starting to stand up for our human rights and freedoms, like JFK and Rocco Galati with Vaccine Choice Canada. We have media, alternative media to our mainstream. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But we have alternative stations like the Rebel News, I Can Decide with Del Bigtree, London Real with Brian Rose. So we're creating our own subculture, our truth culture from what has led to the corruption. So it's like the phoenix rising out of the ashes. We're doing it. So keep the faith, keep safe, keep healthy. Healthtruth.blog is my blog where I try to put all the information, the research that I gather, I kind of store it there. My YouTube channel, Dina Churchill YouTube channel, will have some of the videos of things I've talked about because it's hard to kind of pack it all in one video. But if I had one piece of advice, again, for parents, I'd go back to please read the legislation. Please read the legislation right now, because regardless of what you feel in your heart and what you write in a letter may not be just in this system, may not hold any weight, because our personal, like I said, our freedoms have been overridden by this Emergency Measures Act. And the two pieces of legislation would be the Mandatory Testing Disclosure Act and the Health Protection Act. That gives them the authority to apprehend, isolate, and quarantine your kids without your consent. Informed consent is something that I hold very near and dear, and you'll see it on the header of my Facebook page. But no one can inject you or ask you to do something until you are given informed consent. So you have the ability, the human rights, it's part of your human rights to know first what are the side effects. So parents who are still believing in vaccines, at least ask your doctor what the side effects are. Ask her what the contents are, and ask her what the side effects are. So to know what the side effects are, and then to give you an option and a choice, right? It's part of our human freedoms to have choice. So read the legislation, don't mask, don't send your kids back to school, don't inject them with chemicals that you don't know what's in them. And again, we're repeating this, that 64 deaths in Nova Scotia is not a pandemic, right? 64 deaths is not a pandemic. This is my time to leave now. My phone's starting to fall. But 64 deaths, not a pandemic. Masks don't protect against viruses. They reduce oxygen. And you have the power to change this paradigm. Don't listen to some, MLA who's just being a parrot for the corrupt cabal. Take control of yourself, educate yourself, share the information with others, and take care of your kids. So I invite you to reach for the stars, envision and achieve your personal best, and most of all, enjoy the journey. This is Dr. Dina Churchill, signing out.